I was at a crowded coffee shop the other day, and I was watching this guy who seemed to be in the middle of a really high-stakes business pitch. He was sharp, well-dressed, and he had this air of absolute rehearsed confidence. But as I sat there, I noticed something jarring. While his mouth was busy selling a visionary partnership, his body was practically screaming for the exit. His torso was angled toward his colleague, sure, but his left foot was pointed squarely at the glass door, tilted like a sprinter, waiting for the starting pistol. And he kept saying, "I'm fully committed to this project," but then his phone buzzed. He didn't just glance at it. He phubbed his partner mid-sentence, his eyes darting to the screen with this hunger that made the person sitting across from him look invisible. And in that moment, the colleague's face, it didn't just look annoyed. It looked physically pained. It was that specific expression your brain makes when it processes a social rejection, the exact same way it processes being slapped in the face. What was so fascinating was the guy's total lack of awareness. He clearly thought he was nailing the interaction, but he was actually dismantling his own credibility with every dead fish gesture and defensive clipboard barrier he subconsciously put up. He was operating on the assumption that his words were the stars of the show, while his body was busy telling a much darker, more honest story. It made me realize that most of us are walking around unintentionally sabotaging our lives, declaring a silent war on our relationships simply because we don't realize our own limbs are plotting against us.
Wow, that's a brutally vivid scene you just painted. It's almost uncomfortable to hear because I think we've all been on one side of that table, or maybe both.
Right. You've either been the guy with the phone or the one being ignored.
You've been the one feeling that visceral physical sting of being erased by a smartphone. But what you saw there, that wasn't just a breakdown in modern etiquette. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just a guy who needs a lesson in manners.
It felt like more than that.
You witnessed a collision, a full-on collision between a multi-million-year-old biological operating system and the very sudden, very intrusive arrival of modern technology.
A collision? An ancient primate brain trying to navigate a digital world.
And failing spectacularly.
See, that's where I get a little stuck. To me, it just looked like a guy who was bad at his job or, just plain rude. But you're saying there's something prehistoric happening in a coffee shop.
Absolutely. If we want to understand why that colleague looked physically pained, or why the guy's foot was pointing at the door, or why looking at his phone just completely destroyed his status in that interaction, we cannot just look at social norms.
Social norms are just the surface.
They're the thin veneer. We have to look at the machinery underneath. We have to look at the biology.
To decode this silent war. We're going to take that coffee shop scene and just dismantle it piece by piece using this stack of research you've brought with you.
That's the plan. And the research today is, it's fascinating because it's so diverse. We have papers on everything from the specific mechanics of the human eye, literally, how the whites of our eyes can trigger a fear response, all the way to the grip strength of male college students, and even the gestural communication of macaques.
Macaque, as in the monkeys.
The monkeys, because as we're about to see, we're really just primates in expensive suits.
That's a humbling thought.
We like to think we've evolved past all these raw animalistic signals, but the data just doesn't support that. We're still playing the same old game of status and dominance and submission.
We just swapped the jungle for the open plan office.
Exactly.
Okay, let's start with the most modern part of that story then, the phone. I used the term phubbing in the intro phone snubbing. It's a word that's been around for a bit, and honestly, I usually just dismiss it as another buzzword for being annoying with your phone.
And it's so easy to do that, to just write it off as a bad habit, like, chewing with your mouth open. Right. But we need to look at the source material, specifically a paper called A Third-Person Perspective on Phubbing. This research totally reframes the definition for us. It defines phubbing not just as using a phone, but as socially interfering smartphone use.
Socially interfere. Okay, that word interfering implies it's actively breaking something.
It involves an averted gaze, these shifts in body posture, unexcused disruptions. It's a fundamental withdrawal of attention. And in the primate world, attention is currency. It's everything.
I want to tell you about a story I heard that just illustrates this so perfectly. Let's picture a guy named Julian. He's a high-powered tech consultant in Langdon. He can wear those, bespoke suits that cost a fortune. He's sharp, he's successful, and he has a very specific philosophy about his phone.
Okay, I'm listening. What's the philosophy?
Julian calls his smartphone his scepter of power.
His scepter? Wow, that is That's telling, isn't it?
It says it all. So Julian's on a date. He's at some incredibly trendy, dimly lit lounge. He's sitting across from a woman. Let's call her Clara. Now, Julian believes that to win this interaction, to win Clara over, he has to demonstrate his value. He has to show her that he is a man in high demand.
Okay, I can see the flawed logic already.
Right. So instead of putting his phone away, he places it face up on the table, right between them, like a little black monolith.
He's immediately creating a barrier, a literal physical barrier.
And it's not just sitting there. Every few minutes, the screen lights up. Notifications, emails, Slack messages, you name it.
Yeah.
And every single time it lights up, Julian breaks eye contact with Clara and checks the scepter. In his mind, he is running a very specific script. He genuinely thinks, I am signaling status. I am showing her I am important, that the world needs my attention, and therefore she is lucky to be getting even a fraction of my time.
He thinks the distraction is a dominance display.
He's 100% convinced he's winning the sexual marketplace by proving how busy and in demand he is. But here's the tragedy of Julian. By the time the appetizers arrived, Clara wasn't impressed. She wasn't swooning. She was just shutting down. She got quiet. Her shoulders kind of slumped. By the time the main course came, she made an excuse about an early morning and just left. Julian was left alone at the table, the scepter of power.
And this is the perfect example of where the biology just completely contradicts the ego. Julian's logic, maybe that works in a purely transactional environment, maybe on a stock trading floor where volume and activity equals value. Right? But in a social diet, a one-on-one human interaction, he wasn't displaying dominance. He was committing what the research calls an inclusion norm violation.
An inclusion norm violation. That sounds so clinical for something that feels so personal and, frankly, so insulting.
It is clinical, but the effects are absolutely devastating on a biological level. The source material we're looking at references something called the temporal need-threat model of ostracism.
Ostracism. That's a heavy word. That's like what the ancient Greeks did when they banished people from the city-state.
And that is exactly what Julian was doing to Clara, biologically speaking. Humans are obligate social animals. We have to belong to a group. For millions of years, our survival depended entirely on being an accepted member of the tribe. If you were ignored, if you were excluded, you didn't just feel bad.
You died.
You died, you starved, or you were eaten by a predator. So our brains have evolved this incredibly sensitive hair-trigger alarm system for any sign of social exclusion.
So when Julian looks at his phone, he isn't just multitasking. He is sending a signal to Clara's ancient brain that says, you are not part of my group. You are not important for my survival.
And this is where that word pain comes in. You said the colleague in the coffee shop looked physically pained.
Yeah, it was a wince, a tightening around the eyes. It was physical.
Well, the neuroscience backs you up 100%. The research shows that the brain processes social rejection like being phubbed using the exact same neural pathways as physical injury. Specifically, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex activates.
Wait, back up. You're telling me that if I slap you in the face or if I ignore you to scroll through my phone while you're talking,
yeah,
your brain lights up in the same area?
In terms of the unpleasantness or the distress component of pain, yes, the signal is the same. The brain doesn't really distinguish between my arm is broken and my tribe is rejecting me.
Because they're both existential threats.
They're both existential threats. One is immediate, one is a slow burn, but both mean you might not survive.
That's profound. So Julian thinks he's being this cool, busy executive, but he is, in effect, physically assaulting Clara's brain every time he checks a notification.
He's triggering what the model calls the reflexive stage of ostracism.
Reflexive stage.
It's an immediate gut-level reaction. It involves a plunge in mood, a spike in anger, and a direct threat to 4 fundamental human needs.
Okay, what are they?
The need for belonging, the need for self-esteem, the need for control over your environment, and the need for a meaningful existence.
Meaningful existence. That seems a little extreme. My existence is threatened because you checked an email.
To your conscious modern mind, no, of course not. You know you still exist. But to your primitive brain, the one running the ancient software,
yeah,
yes. If you are invisible to the person across from you, you are invisible to the tribe. And if you are invisible to the tribe, you are, for all intents and purposes, dead. It's a survival trigger, pure and simple.
But the study you brought, it goes even further than that. It didn't just look at the victim, the Clara in this scenario. It looked at the observer. It looked at the third-person perspective.
Right. This is the you in the coffee shop story. You were just watching. You weren't the one being ignored.
No, I was just a bystander. But I felt it. I felt anxious just watching him do it.
That's your mirror neuron system firing. You are simulating the social breach in your own mind. But here's the most important part for our discussion about status. The study showed that observers actively derogate the phubber.
Derogate, so they lower the value of that person in their mind.
Exactly. The observers rated the person using the phone as having lower warmth, which, makes sense. He seems cold.
Sure.
But they also rated him as having lower competence.
Lower competence.
Yeah.
That is the one that would absolutely kill Julian.
It's the dagger in the heart of his strategy. He thinks he is signaling high competence and high value because he's so busy, but the biological signal he is actually sending to everyone around him, including potential mates or business partners, is, I am socially incompetent. I am cold. I am unable to manage the basic interaction in front of me.
He's not a high-status leader. He's a source of social stress.
He's failing the most basic primate test there is. Can you connect with the tribe? And the answer is no.
So he's trying to play this game of 4D chess with his status, but he's actually just knocking all the pieces off the board.
He's not even playing the right game.
Okay, so that handles the phone. The phone is a weapon of ostracism, not a scepter of power. I want to move from the screen to the body itself, to the
face is where things get really, really granular.
In the coffee shop, when the guy wasn't looking at his phone, he was doing this thing with his eyes. He kept widening them. Maybe he thought he was looking intense or passionate about the project, but to me, it just looked off. It was unsettling.
You were reacting to something called Scleral Show.
Scleral Show. That sounds like a medical condition.
It's not, but it's a critical concept. It simply refers to the amount of the sclera, the white part of the eyeball, that is visible around the iris.
Okay, so why does the amount of white in someone's eye even matter?
Well, think about the most basic, universal biological expression of fear. When a human, or almost any primate, experiences sheer terror, what happens to the face?
The eyes pop open, they get really wide.
The eyelids retract violently, the pupils dilate, and suddenly you see a massive amount of white surrounding the colored part of the eye. This is what the science calls a biologically salient signal. It is one of the most powerful, unmissable signals in the entire animal kingdom.
So seeing the whites of someone's eyes it's a warning sign.
It's a 5-alarm fire. We have a paper here titled Eye Size Effects in the Dot Probe Task and another on Orienting to Fear. These studies look at exactly how the amygdala responds to this one specific signal.
The amygdala, that's the brain's threat detection center, the smoke alarm.
And it turns out the amygdala activates vigorously, almost instantly, in response to the whites of the eyes. And here is the truly wild part. It does this even if the rest of the face is completely masked.
Wait, are you serious? If you just showed me a picture of eyes, no mouth, no nose, nothing else, just wide, white eyes, my brain would still freak out.
Your amygdala would light up like a Christmas tree. The research suggests there's a fast pathway, a sort of subcortical route. The visual information goes from your eyes straight to the amygdala, completely bypassing the slow, more conscious processing centers of your cortex.
So my brain perceives the threat before I even realize I'm looking at a face.
Before you can think that person looks scared, your body is already reacting. It's an ancient survival mechanism.
That is incredible. So let's go back to the coffee shop. The guy is widening his eyes to emphasize his point. He's saying, I am fully committed, but he's showing too much sclera.
And the colleague's amygdala is seeing that crescent of white, and it is screaming fear or danger. It's a complete mismatch.
The words say confidence, but the eyes say terror. Or, you said something else earlier, predation.
Well, it can be either. Think about a predator locking onto its prey. Sometimes there is that widening, the absolute fixity. But in a social context, excessive scleral show usually signals that the person is dysregulated. They're in a state of high arousal.
And high arousal is dangerous. It's unpredictable.
It's unpredictable. But I want to dive a little deeper into the mechanics here, because one of the papers you brought is truly exceptional. It's titled Orienting to Fear Under Transient Focal Disruption of the Human Amygdala.
That is a mouthful. Break that down for me. What does it actually mean?
It means they found a way to temporarily turn off the amygdala in living humans and see what happened.
How is that even possible? How do you just turn off a specific part of someone's brain? That sounds like science fiction.
It's incredibly rare science. They worked with epilepsy patients who, for medical reasons, already had electrodes implanted deep in their brains for monitoring. This gave the researchers a unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pass a tiny electrical current through those electrodes and effectively disrupt or turn off the amygdala for brief windows of time.
So they zapped the fear center to see if it changed how people literally look at the world.
They used something called a drift diffusion model to analyze the results of their eye tracking experiments.
Okay, drift diffusion model. I'm going to need you to break that down. It sounds like something out of a physics textbook.
It's actually a pretty intuitive way to think about decision-making. Imagine your brain's decision of way to move your eyes is like a little ball floating in a trough of water. It just drifts around until it hits one boundary or the other. Look left or look right.
Okay, a floating ball. I'm with you so far.
Normally, the brain has a massive bias. It's like adding a powerful current to that water. If there is a fearful face in the room, if there are wide, white eyes, the brain pushes that ball toward that face immediately.
It's a reflex. You orient to the threat instantly.
Because if there's a lion in the grass, you need to see it now to survive.
Right.
But, and this is the amazing part, when they disrupted the amygdala in these patients, when they zapped it and turned off that alarm system, the bias disappeared. The current in the water stopped. Suddenly, the patients no longer oriented their gaze toward the fearful eyes any faster than they looked at a neutral face.
So the amygdala isn't just about feeling scared.
Yeah.
It's physically controlling the motor action of my eyes.
As the massive breakthrough of this research, the amygdala is a functionally lateralized instrument of early action. It drives your physical behavior before your conscious mind has even caught up.
So let's bring this all back to the real world. When the coffee shop guy widens his eyes, my amygdala catches it. My eyes are drawn to his. Not because he's compelling or charismatic, but because my ancient brain is running a threat assessment.
And that creates that feeling of deep unease. You're creating a fear loop. He looks stressed, which is showing in his wide eyes. So you feel stressed because your amygdala is activating. That makes you look stressed, which makes him even more stressed.
And the whole visionary partnership deal just falls apart.
Because nobody signs a contract when their lizard brain is screaming, danger, danger, danger.
This connects perfectly to the next thing I saw. The foot.
Ah, the foot pointing at the door. Classic.
It was almost comical. His entire upper body was turned toward the table, trying to look engaged. But his left leg was stretched out, his foot angled perfectly toward the exit, and he kept leaning back. Every time the colleague leaned in to make a point, the suit guy leaned back.
He was managing his bubble, his personal space.
Yes.
We have a fascinating study here about personal space, specifically involving individuals with borderline personality disorder, or BPD. Now, we are not, to be clear, diagnosing the guy in the coffee shop with BPD.
Of course not.
But the study reveals the underlying mechanism of personal space and why it matters so much.
Okay, so what did they find?
They used a method called the stop distance paradigm. It's very simple. Imagine I start walking toward you from across the room. I tell you to just say stop the very moment you start to feel uncomfortable.
It's the close talker test from Seinfeld.
Oh, it's exactly that. The distance at which you say stop is your personal space metric. The study found that individuals with BPD, who often have amygdalas that are known to be hyperreactive or noisy, required a significantly larger personal space.
How much larger are we talking about?
More than 2 times larger than the control group.
Ow. More than double. So if your amygdala is already firing on all cylinders, you need a much bigger buffer zone around you.
Correct. Your brain starts to classify proximity itself as a threat to what they call homeostatic balance. If you're already feeling anxious or threatened on the inside, someone entering your physical space feels like an impending attack.
So the coffee shop guy? He's leaning back, his foot is pointing at the door, he is subconsciously screaming, I need space, I feel overwhelmed.
He is engaging in classic flight behavior. His foot is literally prepping his body to run, and from a status perspective, that is an absolute killer.
Why is it a status killer? Seems like just a nervous habit.
Because a leader, a high-status individual in any primate group, is defined by their ability to handle pressure. They are regulated, they are calm. If you are physically retreating from a conversation, you are broadcasting that you are dysregulated. You are signaling that you do not feel safe.
And if you don't feel safe, you can't possibly protect the tribe.
And therefore, you cannot be the leader. It's that simple of an equation.
Safety equals leadership. Fear equals submission.
And his entire lower body was broadcasting fear and the desire to flee.
Okay, I want to zoom out a bit now. We've been talking about humans, Julian, Clara, the guy in the coffee shop, but throughout this, we keep touching on the tribe and survival. I feel like we need to just embrace the comparison. We need to go to the zoo, so to speak.
Primate mirror. I love it.
You brought a source on gestural communication in macaques. Macaques are old-world monkeys. They're incredibly social, complex.
And very political. Their entire societies are built on these strict, observable hierarchies.
I was reading through the descriptions of their gesture, and I had this aha moment, specifically with the grin. Because the Katharov guy, whenever he wasn't phubbing or staring, he had this tight, fixed smile plastered on his face.
The customer service smile. We all know it.
We do. And we think of smiles as friendly, as a sign of happiness. But in macaques, that's not what a smile means at all, is it?
Not even close. In the primate world, showing your teeth, specifically what they call the bared teeth display, is almost never about happiness. It is a signal of submission.
Submission. So when a monkey smiles, it's actually saying, I surrender.
In many contexts, yes. The source paper distinguishes between the silent bared teeth display and the play face.
What's the difference between them?
The silent bared teeth display is what we'd recognize as a grimace. The lips are retracted horizontally, the teeth are exposed, but the jaws are clenched shut. The signal means, I am afraid, or do not attack me. I acknowledge you are of a higher rank.
That is exactly what the guy was doing. Tight lips, teeth showing, jaw clenched, saying, I'm fully committed to this project. It was a grimace.
He was flashing a fear signal. He was, on a biological level, apologizing for taking up space.
So what's a real smile then? What's the monkey equivalent of a genuine laugh?
That would be the play face. The key difference is the mouth is open. The jaw is relaxed and dropped. The teeth might be covered or shown, but the defining feature is that open, relaxed jaw that signals, this is just rough and tumble play, this is fun, I am not threatened, you are not threatened.
So tight teeth equals fear. Open, relaxed mouth equals fun.
As a general rule, yes. And think about how we use that tight smile in the human world, in the office. You bump into the CEO in the hallway. What do?
I do the thing. I pull my lips back, show my teeth, and give a little nod. The awkward hallway smile.
You are signaling submission. You are non-verbally saying, I see you, I acknowledge your higher rank, I am not a threat to your status.
That is mind-blowing. We are literally walking around the office, flashing submission signals all day and just calling it being polite.
It's social lubricant. It keeps the peace in the hierarchy. But if you were trying to be the alpha in an interaction, like our guy in the suit, you should not be flashing submission signals every 5 seconds.
What about some of the other gestures? The source mentioned lip smacking.
Ah, yes. Lip smacking and teeth chattering. In macaques, these are what we call affiliative signals.
Affiliative? So friendly. They build bonds.
Exactly. A macaque might approach a more dominant male and start smacking its lips rapidly. It's a way of saying, I come in peace, let's groom, I'm not a threat. It's been shown to reduce aggression.
Now, obviously, we don't go around smacking our lips at each other in a business meeting. That would be a bold choice.
It would be a career-limiting move. Yes. But we have our own behavioral equivalents. Small talk is our lip smacking.
Small talk.
How was your weekend? Did you see the game last night? Can I get you a coffee before we start? These are human grooming behaviors.
They don't seem important, but they serve the same evolutionary function.
They lower cortisol levels in the group, they reduce the likelihood of aggression, they build coalitions, they signal affiliation.
And then there's the flip side of that, the mock bite.
The mock bite is a pure assertive behavior. A dominant monkey might grab a subordinate's arm and place its open mouth on it, but without biting down.
It's a threat display. I could hurt you.
It's a demonstration of controlled power. I could hurt you. I have the capacity to hurt you, but I am choosing not to. That is the ultimate signal of high status. Restraint.
And mounting. We have to talk about mounting.
We do. In primate societies, mounting is rarely just about sex. It is a status regulator. A dominant individual mounts a subordinate to settle a dispute or simply to reassert rank.
It's literally saying, I am on top of you in this hierarchy.
It's the most literal expression of dominance. And while we don't physically mount our colleagues in the boardroom, thankfully, we do it metaphorically all the time.
We do? How?
Verbal mounting, interrupting someone, talking over them, physically looming over them while they're sitting at their desk, or, to go back to Julian and his phone, making someone wait while you check your notifications, that is a temporal mount. You are saying, my time is more valuable than yours. I control the flow of this interaction. I am on top.
But here's the difference, right? In the monkey world, if a dominant mounts a subordinate, the subordinate submits. In the human world, if Julian phubs Clara, She just gets up and leaves.
Because humans have developed this complex cognitive layer of fairness and reciprocity on top of the raw hierarchy, we resent the overt mount. We punish the tyrant. Our coalitions are more fluid.
This brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. We've done the phone, the eyes, the feet, the smile. Now we have to talk about the hands.
The handshake. The dead fish.
Yes, in my opening observation, I noted the guy had dead fish gestures. And I can only assume his handshake would have matched.
The dead fish. It's universally reviled, isn't it?
We all hate it. But why? Why do we hate a weak handshake so much? Is it just some cultural thing we invented?
It feels cultural, but it is deeply, deeply biological. We have a story here, an idea that the weak handshake functions as a subconscious, immediate indicator of low mate value and submissive social positioning.
Low mate value. That is a brutal assessment from a handshake. Nice to meet you. Your genetics are disappointing.
It sounds incredibly harsh, but let's look at the data. We have a study from the University at Albany titled Hand Grip Strength Predicts Sexual Behavior, Body Morphology, and Aggression in Male College Students.
Hand grip strength, or HGS. I've seen this popping up in health and longevity circles recently. It's a proxy for overall vitality, isn't it?
It's a massive biomarker. HGS is what they call highly heritable. It correlates with testosterone levels, with fat-free mass, bone density, and your overall health span. And most importantly, it's an honest signal.
We're back to honest signals again.
You can fake the expensive suit. You can fake the confident words. You can even fake a smile. But you cannot easily fake grip strength. You either have the neuromuscular efficiency and the hormonal baseline to produce that force, or you don't. It is very hard to counterfeit.
So what does a strong grip tell the subconscious mind of the person whose hand you're shaking?
Well, this study found some really wild correlations. For men, a stronger grip correlates with an earlier age of first sexual intercourse.
Okay.
It also correlates with a significantly higher number of sexual partners. Promiscuity.
So the grip is signaling sexual history and competitiveness.
It signals the capacity for success in intersexual competition, and it correlates with physical body morphology. Specifically, the shoulder-to-hip ratio, that classic V-taper, broad shoulders, narrow hip.
So when I shake a man's hand, and it's a firm, crushing grip, my brain is instantly downloading a data file that reads, high testosterone, physically capable, likely successful in competition. Probably aggressive.
Aggressive is a keyword you used. The study also found that stronger males reported a history of more physical aggression and bullying behavior.
So the high school jock stereotype, it isn't just a movie trope. It's actually in the data.
It's in the data. But for our coffee shop analysis, the most interesting part is what the weaker males do. The study looked at the behavioral strategies of men with lower HGS.
The dead fish shakers.
Exactly. If you cannot compete on the axis of physical dominance, if you don't have the grip to back it up, you have to adopt a different strategy. The source material discusses defensive body barriers.
The clipboard. The defensive clipboard barrier for my opening story.
Exactly that. Weaker males, or males who perceive themselves as lower status in an interaction, will often use objects or their own limbs to create a shield. They cross their arms, they hold a drink in front of their chest, they clutch a clipboard or a laptop to their torso.
It's a physical shield against the world.
It's what you might call a sneaker strategy. It is about protection, self-preservation, and risk aversion, not dominance and aggression.
So this guy in the coffee shop, he is wearing the suit of a conqueror. He is speaking the words of a visionary. But his hand is a dead fish, and he is hiding behind a clipboard.
And his foot is pointing at the door, and his smile is a fear grimace.
He is a walking, talking contradiction.
And that is precisely why he is failing. In the animal kingdom, mixed signals are incredibly dangerous. If you look like a threat because of your wide, staring eyes, but you act like prey with your defensive barrier and your weak grip, you are confusing the tribe. And confusion leads to rejection.
It's fascinating that the study mentioned the 2D.4D ratio, the finger length thing.
Yes, the ratio of the index finger, the second digit to the ring finger, the fourth digit. For a long time, that's been a popular metric for prenatal testosterone exposure.
I think pretty much everyone has looked at their own hand to check that at some point.
But this source actually found that hand grip strength was a better and more reliable predictor of these traits, the sexual behavior, the aggression, than the digit ratio was.
So forget trying to sneak a peek at people's fingers.
Yeah.
Just shake their hand.
It's a more direct current measure of functional power, and it's an evolutionary holdover from our arboreal days.
Arboreal, so living in the trees.
For millions and millions of years, our ancestors lived in the canopy. If you couldn't grip a branch, you fell. If you fell, you died. Grip strength was the primary determinant of survival. It meant you could move, you could fight, you could hold on to a mother, you could hold on to a mate. We've only been walking on the ground for a very short period of our evolutionary history. Our brains still deeply, deeply respect the grip.
This is overwhelming. I'm sitting here thinking about every interaction I've had in the last week. I'm analyzing how I hold my coffee cup.
It changes your perspective completely. It's like putting on a pair of infrared goggles. Suddenly you see the heat signatures of biology everywhere you look.
Okay, so let's try to pull all these threads together. We have the guy in the coffee shop. We have Julian from the story. They're trying to navigate the modern world.
They think they're playing a modern game. Business, dating, networking.
But the board they're playing on is millions of years old. The rules are ancient.
Let's just run through the sabotage summary. What did they think they were doing versus what were they actually doing?
Okay, point one, the phone.
They thought it was a scepter of power, a tool for efficiency. In reality, it was a weapon of ostracism. It triggered genuine pain pathways in the people they were trying to impress and caused neutral observers to view them as incompetent.
Point two, the eyes.
They thought wide eyes signaled intensity or passion. In reality, the amygdala read it as Scleral Show, a primal signal of threat, terror, or predation, triggering a subconscious flight response in the other person.
Point three, the body.
They thought the expensive suit made the man, but the dead fish, handshake, the defensive clipboard, the foot pointing at the door, these were the honest signals. They broadcasted low testosterone, submission, and an overwhelming desire to flee the interaction.
So they were wearing the costume of a leader, but they were acting out the script of a scared subordinate.
And the audience, the colleague, the date, the bystander, they picked up on the script, not the costume. Because the amygdala doesn't care about your Armani suit. It cares about survival signals.
That is the tragedy of it all. We get so obsessed with the surface level, the words we say, the brands we wear. I'm fully committed to this project.
All while the body is screaming, I am terrified and I want to leave this room immediately.
There was one last image from the source material that really stuck with me. It was about the straitjacket.
That's a powerful image. The source text talks about people who cross their arms so tightly they look like they are hugging themselves.
The line was, like they're trying to hug themselves in a straitjacket.
And gripping their own arms so tight that they leave white marks on their skin.
Why do we do that?
It's a self-soothing mechanism, an attempt to regulate our anxiety. But the text frames it so beautifully. Like, they're afraid if they let go, they might accidentally show some vulnerability.
We are literally holding ourselves together, trying not to fall apart.
And in doing so, we are broadcasting that fear. We are putting up that barrier. We are non-verbally saying, do not groom me, do not approach me, I am not safe.
So what's the antidote here? If we are all unintentionally sabotaging ourselves with these ancient primate behaviors, how do we flip the script?
We have to stop letting our limbs plot against us. We have to become aware of the code of the signals we're constantly sending.
True status in the primate world, then. It isn't about looking at a screen or faking a smile.
No. True status, the kind that creates stable leadership, is about the ability to engage. It's about social grooming, which for us means active listening. It means eye contact that isn't a wide-eyed stare, but a warm, connected engagement.
It's about offering affiliation.
The human equivalence of lip smacking. It's about making the other person feel safe.
Signaling safety rather than threat.
The dominant chimp isn't always the one who beats everyone else up. That chimp usually gets overthrown by a coalition. The true long-term leader is the one who builds those coalitions. It's the one who stabilizes the tribe by making its members feel secure.
So if Julian had just put the phone away.
If he had put the phone away, he would have signaled, you are the most important thing in my world right now. You are important to the tribe. That is a powerful status signal.
And if the coffee shop guy had just planted both his feet on the floor and relaxed his smile,
he would have signaled, I am grounded, I am safe, I am confident, and I am here with you. That is what leadership looks and feels like.
It sounds so simple when you lay it all out, yet we fight against our own biology every single step of the way.
We let modern technology hijack that ancient biology. The phone buzzes, we get a little dopamine hit, so we look, we ignore the person in front of us, we sabotage the relationship for a fleeting reward.
It's a silent war, but it sounds like one where we can call a ceasefire.
We absolutely can, but first we have to be aware of the weapons we're carrying. Our eyes, our hands, our posture, they are all loaded weapons, for good or for ill.
This has been a massive wake-up call for me. I am definitely going to be thinking about my own Scleral Show all week.
Just don't overthink it, or you'll get the dead fish tremors from the anxiety.
Right. Relax the play face.
Yeah.
Open, relaxed mouth.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for unpacking all of this. It's been a truly deep dive into the jungle of the modern office.
My pleasure. It's always good to check in with our inner primate.